Well, Bobby, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us at Silver Tiger Media. What a world gone batshit crazy. Someone hit the big red button and the shit went viral.
And, I never thought of those lyrics as actually being prophetic until just now. Just now, somebody did hit the big red button.
Absolutely. I have to apologise, but I've been spinning that trick since Charlie Victor took hold of us all and shook the world to shit. It's been brilliant.
Somebody just told me 2020 is like looking both ways across the street, and when you get out in the middle, you get hit by a jet airplane.
Here we go. Perfect. Well, BPMD, American made, man, just brilliant work. I'm not sure how long it's been since I gushed my way through a review, but I hope you'll forgive my writing there. You're probably sick of telling a story by now, but it's such a cool story. We've got to mention it. This is all triggered by 8-year-old Alex Menghi, right?
Yeah, 8, now 9, but it was barbecue in Mark's backyard, fire pit going, I assume, American-made hamburgers and hot dogs on the grill or some chicken kebabs and the stereo. And when he brought it up to his dad, Mark, Mark immediately assumed he was thinking Metal Allegiance because Alex is very connected to it, knows all the guys, etc. And Mark said, we can't do that. Mark goes, I love this song, but we can't do it. And he goes, you could still do it. And I guess a couple of more beers into it, he's like, I got to call Blitz. I got to see if Blitz will do it. Blitz grew up in that era. So it was a nice story.
How did that call go to you? I mean, was Alex immediately credited? What did you think of the idea in embryo?
I'll tell you, it was spontaneous, which was great. And something about spontaneity and momentum, where great ideas can come out of. And Alex was credited instantly. He said, I was in the backyard with my sons, and he brought this up. So, my first impression was, I was like, why is this guy calling me at, quarter to 12 at night? I said, he's got to be drunk, And that's what I said to him. I'm like, hey, man, just don't call me when you're drunk. Call me at regular hours, And then he started spitting the idea out. And, immediately my eyes started getting bigger and bigger. So I think, before the end of the conversation, we were both throwing back possibilities of songs and kind of cutting some basic rules to what we were going to do, and actually first saying, hey, I bet you Mike Portnoy would be into it because he's the Wikipedia of all music, and Phil Demmel loves playing different styles. So the band was kind of born right there, and a couple phone calls to follow, and I think within 24 hours we were solidified.
And afterwards, after we've heard the album now, it seems such perfect choices. But how did the original decision come, if I have the facts straight, that nobody could argue with each other's choice of song? Was that sort of established right at the outset?
Yeah, pretty much. That's the way we presented it to the other guys, Mark and myself. And everybody thought of it as a kind of a weird little challenge. It was kind of a challenge game. That, you don't like it? Too bad. Do your best or dig into it. So it wasn't just, okay, let's just pick 10 songs that fit Bobby's voice or Phil's guitar playing, or Mike could do just about any different style of music. But it wasn't about my voice or Phil's playing. It was about what each individual wanted to pursue. And, I ran into a couple of snags, a couple of tripped over the rug a few times with a couple of the choices. So.
Absolutely. Of course, you selected Evil and Never in My Life by Mountain. The Willie Dixon song Evil has been covered so many times over the years, but it's a 1971 version by Cactus that you've cited. Was it more the songs or the bands themselves that really sprung to mind for you immediately?
Well, in that case, specifically, it was the band and their presentation of it. My feeling was, as things were going on over in the UK, and this, this big invasion that they were putting together with regard to the Led Zeppelins, the Black Sabbaths, and the Deep Purples of the era, and some lesser known bands, but not any less talented. Status Quo, for instance. that Cactus was the equivalent or the answer to that British invasion. They were the Led Zeppelin-esque American band that had that, just that free, wild style that you knew. When in hindsight, I look back and I say it was the bridge to, the heavy metal I started loving, very much in the late 70s, early 80s.
Mm. Absolutely. And never in my life. I mean, is DD a little pissed that you did that without him? You were both talking about that at one stage.
Well, that was the point. I think I'd mentioned it to you or I'd mentioned it in an interview with this, but he brought it up to me in I think in an airport in Turkey or somewhere over in, we're stirring like dirty coffee and he's going, I want to cover Never in My Life. I'm like, dude, that is right in my wheelhouse. I love that tune. And it never came to fruition. So when this came up, I was like, I'm grabbing this. I don't want to be in a situation where I have the opportunity to do something that I grew up with. Off the record Climbing by Mountain, but then not have the chance to record it, before I stop recording. So that was my second choice. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. And there was a few things while listening to it that really occurred to me and had me wondering, one of which was everyone's song sort of thrown down on the table, ceremonious poker showdown style. I mean, when did each of you learn of each other's choices?
Well, very soon thereafter, there was, there's kind of a frenzy of throwing names in the ring. Maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to do that. I chose Mike to that first night. And Mark had too, but I think Phil and Mike were bouncing back and forth with some other things. I was getting emails and texts from both of them. So they were more, I suppose, inspired by the idea, but then settled into their ideas. And I think Mike made some really great choices because, these are quintessential 70s bands, Aerosmith and Ted Nugent. And it was, and he was like Wang Dang, and I want to do Toys in the Attic. And then Phil came in, from left field with Blue Oyster Cult Tattoo Vampire, which I think that it worked out well because it almost has this punky, snotty vibe to me through the whole tune. I was like, geez, this one is like, for me, became a great accomplishment because it was so much more like Overkill than, for instance, Cactus or Ted Nugent. And he also picked DOA, Van Halen cut.
Absolutely brilliant. I couldn't agree more with your observations. You all nailed each track so well and in your own style. Were there any, particularly in early stages, that had you a little bit concerned about how they would turn out as a group more than vocally?
Well, you know what happened was when we started recording the drums. We just went to Mike's house. We flew Phil in to see where, what was the next step going to be. But the idea was whatever happens, happens. And I think it was good we pressed record that day. Mike's got the full setup. He was behind the glass on one of his favorite kits and had an engineer there, and we started recording. So we started getting that spontaneity back again. It wasn't any overthinking. It was now, the machine was rolling. He completed all 10 tracks in 10 hours. And I think that it lent itself to the authenticity of the record because this is kind of how you would have recorded, I would assume, back in the 70s. It wasn't cut and paste. It wasn't, let's overthink this unless you had, $1 million budgets or whatever the budget was. A lot of these bands had to do one-take wonders. So I think that what happened was, I was probably one of the sore thumbs. I think Phil, maybe one of the sore thumbs, had to come back and kind of relearn some stuff. But Mark Menghi really became the glue between Mike and Phil. Because, Phil came in with that kind of, Kemper, a little bit of a thrashy sound, which updated the songs, still kept their integrity, updated them. But Mark walked the bass between the drums and the guitar. And that, I think, gave it more of the, the original or reimagined authenticity.
Oh, beautifully put. Absolutely. And also an organic nature. I think I couldn't help but comment that it was more organic than a steaming pile of horse shit in the morning mist, which I didn't want you to think I was reflecting on the whole album in that way.
Okay. God bless Australia and your sense of humor.
Bobby, from a vocal perspective, did any of the songs find you modifying in style or technique at all? Because they all seem they seem so comfortable from a vocal range perspective.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I had to put it into my wheelhouse. And there's some things I do better than other things. I mean, I know that, but I learned a long time ago that I'm not Steven Tyler. There's one, and I'm not David Lee Roth, and I never even thought I could possibly, do a Roth-esque vocal line. But I think just by accepting the fact that this was going to be me, love it or hate it, it just kind of gave me to say, okay, I just put it in my range and I do what I do. And that would be the formula for the best results under the circumstances.
Oh, it's beautifully put again. I couldn't agree with that quote more. Your introduction to Wang Dang Sweet Poontang on the album is just priceless, or the introduction to the whole collection. How much fun overall was this to make? It just screams of fun.
Well, isn't that the kind of the point? I mean, if that sweats through the notes, the arrangements, the reimagining it, that's what it all was about. I mean, it wasn't hard for me to go back there because I mean, I was running around at 13 years old, or 11 or 12 when that Cactus record came out, and very soon thereafter was exposed to it, just like the Mountain stuff. I was singing Grand Funk in the shower, So for me, this was somebody asked me to go back. Hey, go back and be 13 years old again. I said, I've lived my whole fucking life like I was 13 years old. I said, this is not a problem for me. So to go back there and to some degree, at least touch on reliving it was, a very unique opportunity. So I mean, I embraced it. Mark Menghi is born, I think it's like 1980 or something. So he had to go back into the 70s and start collecting vinyl when he was a teenager in the 90s. But I was there when that Mountain record came out, when Ted did that double live Gonzo in Nashville, Tennessee. I mean, so it was a great experience.
Oh, magnificent. Each track for me, too, took me on a bit of a journey back to even the younger days experiencing those bands for myself. But you seem to honour them in a way as well. So your approach was obviously the perfect approach for how to achieve it. But your observations really lead me to ask, I mean, what's next? Is there a 90s? Is there an 80s, a 60s maybe?
I think it's an open-ended idea. And I think that was the beauty of it at the beginning. Not that, hey, we will do covers. The idea was we will do covers under this moniker with these guidelines. So you can apply those guidelines to the world, to Europe, to North America, to the UK. You could do Made in the UK, the 1970s. Could you imagine the bands you could choose from? And already I'm all over like a Fleetwood Mac song with Peter Green that I always loved. Something by Status Quo. I mean, because they're a little bit deeper cuts. Just a little bit. They're not. It's not Kiss, Rock and Roll All Night, which was the 70s. It's a little bit deeper. But I'd like to see where it goes. And when Mark and I presented it to Napalm, they were right on board with the fact that we had an idea that wasn't only singular. Hey, Napalm, pay me and we're out of here. That wasn't it. It was, hey, this thing could have legs. So. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You can see that in some of the marketing as well, too. Some of the finery that's out there on offer with hoodies and shirts, and that splatter vinyl is out of this world.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah.
Was there an initial agreement to cover all of these tracks in a specific way, or did you sort of just explore each song and see how they came out?
It's explore each song and how it came out. I mean, I told you just in 2 answers ago that I had to let it be me instead of trying to pull something off. I couldn't pull off a Van Zandt. I couldn't pull off a Joe Walsh. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. But I can go in there, give it my best shot, put the gloves on, take a few hits, and give a few back, And so I think that what we had was something. We tried to keep the integrity of the original, but simultaneously had to brand it with our own presentations.
I think that was summed up or almost overarched for the whole album statement-wise with Walk Away. I thought that was such a killer choice. How long did it take to decide on the group's choices to make up the 10?
It didn't take long. I mean, it was, we were going back and forth, and I had that James Gang record, Funk 49, and the whole thing. So I was all over that. And American Band was a no-brainer. That was also a group choice. If you're going to do American Made, why not do it? I mean, even Mark Farner, we sent it to Mark Farner from Grand Funk, and he was, is this done or can I play on this? Which was so cool. He didn't even sing the song. It was Donnie Brewer, the drummer, actually sang American Band. But, if you get that kind of response from Mark Farner or Ted Nugent saying, thank God somebody's doing old-style rock and roll, or Billy Gibbons chimed in and said, Groovalicious.
Oh, brilliant stuff indeed. Well, it just bursts fun, and I think the whole world should have at least one copy in every household. That'll kick COVID in the ass as far as I'm concerned. And I've said I'm remembering 2020 for this album, not COVID. It can get fucked.
Yes. And you're 100% right. And the timing of the record, to some degree, even works. I mean, obviously, you couldn't plan something like this, but four guys who've, cut their teeth on rock and roll from back in the 70s and the 80s, who had the opportunity to revisit it during a fucking shit time for the entire fucking lot of us. It just shows that there is a normal out there somewhere. Not like we're carrying the flag for it, but for fuck's sake, it just makes you, it makes you want to fucking, throw a little lighter fluid on the charcoal, throw a match in and say, whatever you got in the refrigerator, honey, bring it out, and a couple of cold beers. We're going to rock and roll.
Horns up to that, absolutely. Now, you're always working on new Overkill, of course. I don't think there's ever been a time where you're sitting back relaxing. How's that new album coming along?
It's good. I mean, it's a unique time for us because we usually work on a clock. I just had a meeting today with somebody who's interested in working with us, and she had asked me, about Overkill and what I think of it, and I, what my perception is. I said, we've been punching that clock every 2 years since 1985. That's what we do. I said, that's our visibility. That's how we like to work. But this, I said, is a little out of the box for us because we're going to be a little bit later than the norm. But it also gives us time, not necessarily to reassess ourselves, but to, let's say, put more quality time, normal time, into what we're writing at this point.
There it is. I think that'll go down in the annals of music history. Not even a global pandemic could stop Overkill, let alone exploring BPMD as well.
Somebody once compared us to nuclear cockroaches. Can't fucking kill them. Just can't kill them.
Bobby, without pissing in your pocket, for want of a better term, but the 70s, you've made some of these tracks just absolute gems, or they've all come out so brilliantly. But it shows still that you're still killing it in magnificent style. You seem to age like a fine wine, just getting more magnificent with every year aging. What's your secret? What keeps you going?
Well, jeez, I don't know. I mean, part of me feels like I'm still running from the cops. You know what I mean? I got to stay one step ahead. There's obviously a love for it.
In Atlanta.
That's what we do. The book. When me and you do the book, we'll do a chapter on that. But I think that I love the opportunities. I love the opportunities. It's not a career. It's ingrained in me. It's part of my soul. I mean, I reach down there and pull my soul out of myself. I mean, there's some warmth to it, but most of it's leather and steel. So it's so to deny what I am would be, I think, would be a shame. And it makes it complete. It adds the. If it wasn't here, I would miss it. When it's here, it just seems like the norm.
Oh, fantastic. And here's to you keeping going forever. Not even COVID could slow you down. But from BPMD's point of view and from Napalm Records, to you, Mike, Mark, and Phil, congratulations. To me, I thought it was going to be a covers album. Instead, it's just epic. Thank you very much.
Rowan, always a pleasure to talk to you, man.
Thank you very much, Bobby. Take care. We'll see you soon.
My best to your family.
Thank you very much, mate. Bye-bye.
All right, bro.